The warning. The neon glow of a flickering street lamp cast an eerie light over the rain-soaked pavement. Ben Carter stood outside his bookstore, keys in hand, ready to lock up for the night. The familiar scent of aged paper and freshly brewed coffee still clung to his clothes, a comforting reminder of the quiet life he had built. It had been years since he'd walked away from his career as a defense attorney. Once, he had fought for justice in packed courtrooms, standing toe-to-toe with the worst of humanity. But justice had failed him. It had taken everything he had and left him hollow. Now, he only sought solitude, finding peace in the quiet corners of his shop, in the inked words of forgotten stories. But tonight, that peace would be shattered. A flash of movement caught his eye. Across the street, under the dim streetlight, sat a child. At first, he thought she was a pile of rags. Her clothes were tattered, her frame unnaturally still. Then she shifted slightly, hugging her knees to her chest. The way she sat, small, withdrawn, as if trying to disappear, sent a chill crawling up Ben's spine. Something about her wasn't right. He should have walked away. He had learned that lesson a long time ago. Yet his feet didn't move. She was just a child, alone. Ben sighed, adjusting the strap of his leather messenger bag before crossing the street. As he approached, she tensed, her fingers digging into her arms. Her face was mostly hidden beneath the shadow of a damp hoodie, but beneath it, wide, dark eyes locked onto his. A storm of emotion swirled in those eyes. Fear, exhaustion, something else. Something primal. Ben crouched down, keeping his distance. "Hey," he said gently. "Are you lost?" She shook her head, her breath hitching. He frowned. "Are you waiting for someone?" Again, she shook her head. Rain pattered against the pavement, the night silent except for the occasional whoosh of passing cars. Ben exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but you can't sit out here all night. Do you have somewhere to go?" Her lip trembled. "They're coming." The words barely escaped her lips, but they sent a cold prickle down Ben's spine. He glanced around, suddenly feeling exposed. "Who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she suddenly lurched forward and grabbed his wrist. Her small fingers were ice cold, shaking. "You have to hide me." Ben's heartbeat quickened. He had spent years running from trouble, but something in this girl's voice, raw and desperate, made it impossible for him to ignore her plea. Before he could respond, the low hum of an approaching car sent the girl into a panic. Ben turned his head just as a sleek black sedan rounded the corner. Its headlights cut through the rain, illuminating the street. The girl shrank back, pressing herself against the sidewalk as if trying to disappear. Instinct kicked in. "Come on." Ben grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the alley beside his shop. They ducked behind a dumpster just as the car slowed. Ben peered around the corner. The car idled in front of his bookstore, its windows tinted so dark he couldn't see inside. A long moment passed. Then the car crept forward and disappeared into the night. Ben let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The girl, still trembling, clung to his sleeve. "Who was that?" he asked, his voice low. She swallowed hard. "The people who don't want me to exist." Ben stared at her. "What does that mean?" She hesitated. "I can't tell you." Something about the way she said it, the absolute certainty in her voice, made Ben's stomach twist. He ran a hand through his rain-dampened hair, staring at the spot where the car had been. His better judgment told him to walk away. But then he looked at her, really looked at her. She was just a kid. Scared. Alone. Ben sighed. "Come inside," he said. "At least until the rain stops." Inside the bookstore, Ben led the girl through the back entrance of the shop, flipping on a dim light. The scent of books, ink, and old paper filled the air, a comforting contrast to the cold, wet night outside. She hesitated in the doorway, her thin frame silhouetted against the light. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe here." Slowly, she stepped inside. Ben grabbed a warm fleece blanket from the back storage room and draped it over her shoulders. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Ava." He nodded. "Ava, do you want something hot to drink?" She nodded. Ben disappeared into the tiny reading nook where he kept a small coffee machine. A few minutes later, he returned with a steaming mug of hot chocolate. Ava took it with both hands, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. Ben pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "You want to tell me what's going on?" She kept her eyes down. "You shouldn't have helped me." Ben arched an eyebrow. "Why?" Ava clutched the mug tighter. "Because now they'll come for you too." A chill ran down Ben's spine. He leaned forward, keeping his voice calm. "Ava, you need to be honest with me. Who are these people? Why are they after you?" She looked up then, her eyes hollow. "Because I was never supposed to be born." Ben felt the weight of her words settle like a stone in his chest. He knew what it was like to carry a burden too heavy for one person. He had carried one himself for years. But this was different. This was dangerous. And something told him that if he didn't figure out the truth soon, it would be too late. Shadows in the rain. The bookstore had never felt so quiet. The hum of the refrigerator in the back, the rhythmic ticking of the old wall clock. These were familiar sounds, ones Ben had learned to tune out. But now, they seemed deafening, filling the space between him and the shivering girl wrapped in a blanket. Ava sat curled in the armchair near the front of the store, the oversized fleece draped over her thin shoulders. She had barely touched her hot chocolate, though she kept her hands wrapped around the mug like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. Ben leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You said you were never supposed to be born." His voice was even, careful. "What does that mean?" Ava's grip on the mug tightened. She stared down at the swirling liquid, her breath shallow. "They told everyone not to take me." Ben's stomach clenched. "They?" he repeated. She nodded. "The people at the home, the ones who ran it. They always warned the families, said I was trouble." The way she said the word made something inside him twist. He had worked enough pro bono cases in his time as an attorney to know how the system failed kids like her. "They said I wasn't right," she continued, "that I made bad things happen. People listened. No one wanted me." Ben exhaled. "That doesn't make sense. No child is bad just for existing." Ava's expression darkened. "Then why is everyone who takes me gone?" A shiver crept up his spine. "Gone?" he asked. She nodded. "Every time someone tried to adopt me, something happened. Accidents, fires, people disappearing. The last couple, Mr. and Mrs. Dawson, they said they weren't afraid. They took me home." Ava's fingers trembled around the mug. "But they didn't come back." Ben frowned. "What do you mean?" Ava's lips parted, but no sound came out. She shook her head, gripping the blanket tighter around her. Ben could feel the tension in the air like a storm waiting to break. A child doesn't make people disappear. It wasn't logical. But there was something else at play here, something she wasn't saying. He ran a hand through his hair. "Okay," he said, keeping his tone light. "Let's start simple. Where have you been staying since then?" Ava hesitated. "Nowhere. I move around." "How long?" She hesitated before whispering. "A year." "A year. Alone. On the streets." Ben let out a slow breath. Before he could say anything else, the front window rattled. Ava jolted upright. Her wide eyes darted to the glass. Ben turned, his muscles tensing. A car sat idling across the street, the same black sedan from earlier. Ben moved quickly, extinguishing the front lights. The shop plunged into dimness, the only illumination coming from the faint glow of the street lamp outside. Ava's breathing was ragged, her small frame rigid. "Stay here," Ben murmured. She grabbed his wrist. "Please," she whispered, "don't go out there." He hesitated, but he couldn't ignore this. Gently, he pried her fingers from his wrist and stepped toward the door. The bell chimed softly as he pushed it open, stepping into the cold, damp night. The air smelled of wet pavement and something faintly metallic. The sedan's headlights were off now, but the engine remained on, its low hum vibrating in the stillness. Ben could feel eyes on him. He took a step forward. "Can I help you?" No response. He squinted, trying to make out anything through the tinted windows. The driver's side window rolled down a fraction. A man's voice drifted out. Smooth, controlled. "You have something that isn't yours." Ben's pulse quickened. "I don't know what you're talking about." A pause. Then, "The girl." Ben clenched his jaw. "She's a child, not a possession." The man let out a slow chuckle. It was devoid of humor. "You don't understand what you've stepped into, Mr. Carter." Ben stiffened. Whoever this was, they knew his name. That wasn't good. He took a slow step back toward the shop. "If you have a problem, I suggest you take it up with the police." Another chuckle. This time, it was lower, darker. "You think they don't know?" Ben's blood ran cold. The engine revved. Then, in a smooth, deliberate motion, the car pulled away, its tires whispering against the wet asphalt. Ben stood frozen for a long moment. He didn't know who they were, but they knew him. The truth beneath the lies. Back inside, Ava sat curled in the chair, her eyes locked on him the second he walked in. "What did they say?" she whispered. Ben locked the door behind him and ran a hand over his face. "They wanted you." Ava's expression darkened. He sat down across from her, his heart still hammering. "Ava, I need the truth. Who are they?" She swallowed hard. "They're the ones who made me." Ben frowned. "Made you?" She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to survive. My mother, she ran away before they could stop her." Ben's breath hitched. "Stop her from what?" Ava looked away. "Getting rid of me." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Ben struggled to make sense of what she was saying. "You're telling me they wanted you dead?" Ava's fingers curled into fists. "They tried, but I didn't die. And now they don't know what to do with me." Ben leaned forward. "Ava, listen to me. You have to tell me the truth. Who are they? Why are they after you?" She hesitated. Then, finally, she whispered, "They're the ones who decide who gets to live." Ben's stomach turned to stone. The world outside seemed to close in. The rain, the night, the shadows stretching across the streets. It all felt suffocating. This wasn't just a case of a runaway girl. This was something far worse. And now he was caught in the middle of it. The names of the forgotten. The bookstore was suffocatingly silent. Even the ticking of the old clock on the wall felt louder than usual, counting down the seconds as Ben Carter processed what Ava had just told him. They're the ones who decide who gets to live. Ben had been a lawyer for years, working cases that peeled back the dark layers of society. Corruption, greed, power. But nothing like this. Nothing that made his skin crawl with the sickening feeling that he had just stumbled into something much, much bigger than himself. Ava sat across from him, wrapped in the same oversized blanket, her hands trembling as she held her mug. She hadn't taken a single sip. "You need to tell me everything," Ben said, his voice low, steady. "Who are they?" She didn't answer right away. She just stared at the table between them, as if searching for a safe way to explain something that had no safety at all. Then she whispered, "You wouldn't believe me." Ben exhaled. "Try me." Ava's gaze flicked up to him. "They're the ones who made me." Ben's fingers curled against the edge of his chair. "You said that before. What does that mean?" Ava's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "I was born in a place no one is supposed to know about. A place for kids who shouldn't exist." Ben's stomach turned to stone. He thought of every shady organization he had encountered in his legal career, every case where powerful people made people disappear. "Where?" he asked carefully. She shook her head. "I don't know the name, but I remember the halls. Cold, They made others, she said, but none of them lasted. I don't know why. I just know I wasn't supposed to make it either. Ben's heartbeat pounded in his ears. This wasn't just about a girl who had been rejected by the foster system. This was something worse. Much worse. The names on the list. Ava barely spoke the rest of the night. Ben set her up in the small reading nook at the back of the shop, near the space where he sometimes napped when working late. He gave her a pillow, a blanket, and an old hoodie that would fit her better than the fleece she was wrapped in. She didn't ask questions. She just curled up in the corner and closed her eyes, as if the weight of the world was pressing her down. Ben sat behind the counter, staring at his laptop, but his mind wasn't on the books he needed to sort or the finances he needed to check. It was on Ava, and what the hell he had just gotten himself into. His instincts screamed at him to dig deeper. So he did. He pulled up a private browser, using an encrypted search engine, and started typing. Unidentified government facilities for child experiments. Black sites for illegal medical research. Children disappeared from orphanages. Page after page of conspiracy theories flooded his screen. But most of them were garbage. Claims about alien DNA, mind control programs, or experiments that made people superheroes. None of it was real, except something was real, and it was sitting in his bookstore, wrapped in a blanket, trying to disappear. Ben changed tactics. He typed in a new search, missing children in the foster system. A long list of government reports appeared. One article caught his eye. The Lost Files. 438 missing children, no investigations. Ben clicked. The article detailed how, over the past 15 years, hundreds of children had vanished from state-run foster programs with no follow-up. No records of adoptions, no investigations, just missing files, missing kids, missing lives. Some cases had brief explanations, runaways, paperwork errors, but too many had nothing. His fingers tightened on the laptop. Then he found something even worse. A list. Names, ages, dates of disappearance. And one name near the bottom made his breath catch. Ava Lennox, age 6, vanished from Golden Pines home. No record of placement. Ben felt his pulse in his throat. Ava wasn't lying. Someone had erased her. And now, those same people wanted her back. A warning in the dark. A floorboard creaked. Ben looked up. The bookstore was still, but the hairs on his neck stood on end. Something felt wrong. He slowly reached for the desk drawer, where he kept an old revolver. He hadn't needed it in years, not since he stopped practicing law and moved into a quieter life. But right now, his gut told him he was going to need it. Another creak. Ben pushed the laptop screen down. Then, a shadow moved outside the window. His pulse spiked. The street was dark, the street lamps casting long, twisted shapes. But one of those shapes didn't belong. A figure stood in the alley across the road, watching. Ben's fingers curled around the revolver's grip. Then, slowly, the figure lifted a hand, a gloved hand, and pointed directly at Ben. Ben stood. His breath was slow, controlled. His heartbeat was not. A car's engine rumbled nearby. Then the figure melted into the darkness. Gone. Ben exhaled, his muscles coiled tight. He turned toward the back nook, toward Ava. She was awake, sitting up, watching. "They found us," she whispered. Ben clenched his jaw. "No," he said. "They were never looking for you." Ava frowned. "They were looking for who took you." Ben's blood ran cold. And now, they had found him. The hunters in the dark. Ben Carter stood frozen, staring at the empty street where the shadowed figure had just been. The air in the bookstore suddenly felt thick, suffocating, as if something unseen was pressing against the walls. Ava sat stiffly on the reading nook couch, her small hands gripping the blanket he had given her. Though she didn't say a word, her eyes, wide and filled with something between terror and understanding, told him everything. She had been running. But she had never outrun them. Ben forced himself to move, pulling down the blinds and locking the door. He double-checked the windows, then grabbed his laptop again, reopening the page with the missing children's list. Ava's name was still there, along with dozens of others. 438 children. Where had they all gone? Ben turned to Ava. "Tell me about Golden Pines." She shook her head, tucking her knees against her chest. "I don't remember much," she whispered. "I was only 6 when she took me away." Ben frowned. "Your mother?" Ava nodded. "I think. She used to work there, before she got me out." That changed everything. If Ava's mother had once been inside that system, she might have known exactly what was happening to those children. And if she had risked her life to save Ava, then it meant something worse. Whatever was happening at Golden Pines, it was deadly. Ben turned back to his laptop, searching for Golden Pines' home. At first, nothing came up. No website, no photos, no mention of it in state records. It was as if it had never existed. But Ben had been a lawyer long enough to know that everything left a trace. He changed his approach, using an archived government database to search through old facility licenses. And then, buried under outdated records, he found it. Golden Pines Home for Children. Established, 1993. Closed, 2017. Ben's pulse quickened. He clicked on the file, and a faded black and white image appeared. It wasn't a home. It was a fortress, a massive brick building surrounded by a 12-foot-high fence with barbed wire curling along the top. It looked more like a prison than an orphanage. Ava's voice was barely audible. "That's it." Ben glanced at her. She was staring at the screen, her face pale. "That's where I came from." His grip tightened on the mouse. "What happened in there?" "Ava." She swallowed, as if forcing herself to speak. "They tested us." Ben's chest tightened. "Tested you how?" Ava's eyes darted toward the door, as if she expected someone to burst in at any moment. "They took blood. A lot of it. And they made us do things. Different things, depending on the kid." Her fingers twisted in the fabric of the blanket. "I don't remember much. Just flashes. Needles. Lights. A room where we had to solve puzzles. But if you got them wrong." She trailed off, her lips pressing into a thin line. Ben's hands curled into fists. He had seen evil in his life. He had defended the innocent against monsters in suits and ties, men who thought their money and power could erase the lives they destroyed. But this was different. This was something worse. And now, it wasn't just in his past. It was standing in his bookstore, staring at him with terrified eyes. Ava wasn't just a runaway. She was evidence, and someone was still trying to erase her. The warning. A loud knock shattered the silence. Ben's body tensed. Ava flinched. He stood slowly, placing a hand on the revolver still tucked in the back of his waistband. The knock came again, harder this time. Ben moved cautiously to the front door, peering through the peephole. A man stood on the other side. He was dressed in a dark suit, his hair slicked back. A little too perfect, a little too controlled. Not a cop. Not a lost customer. Ben had dealt with these types before. Government, private security, enforcers for people who didn't want to be found. The man knocked again. "Mr. Carter." His voice was smooth, professional. "I know you're in there." Ben said nothing. "We need to talk," the man continued. "It's about the girl." Ava's breath hitched behind him. Ben's grip on the revolver tightened. "Go to the back room," he said softly to her. "Lock the door." She didn't hesitate. She disappeared down the hallway, and a second later, he heard the soft click of the lock. Ben took a deep breath and opened the door just enough to see the man's face. "Store's closed," Ben said flatly. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I don't think you understand the situation, Mr. Carter." Ben kept his expression neutral. "Why don't you enlighten me?" The man reached into his suit pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a small folder. Inside were photos. Ben's bookstore. His apartment. Ava, standing in the alley. Ava, looking over her shoulder. And the last photo. Ben and Ava together, inside the store. Taken tonight. Cold rage settled in Ben's chest. The man's voice was calm, almost amused. "We know she's here." Ben exhaled slowly, his grip steady. "I don't know who you are," he said, "but if you don't get off my property in the next 5 seconds, I promise you're going to regret knocking on my door." The man's smile didn't waver. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Carter." Ben didn't respond. A beat of silence. Then the man tilted his head slightly, as if considering something. Finally, he slid the folder back into his pocket. "This isn't over," he said. Then he turned and walked away. Ben didn't move until he was sure the man was gone. Then he shut the door, locked it, and exhaled slowly. Ava was standing in the hallway, her face pale. "They know," she whispered. Ben nodded. "Yeah. They're not going to stop." "No," he agreed. "They're not." Ava's hands trembled. "What do we do now?" Ben clenched his jaw. "We find them first." Ava blinked. "What?" Ben turned back to his laptop. "Whoever these people are, they've spent years hunting you." He looked at her. "It's time we start hunting them." Unraveling the ghosts. Ben Carter had spent his career exposing corruption, dismantling lies, and defending those the system had tried to erase. But this wasn't just another legal battle. This was a war. Ava sat at the edge of the bookstore's couch, hugging her knees, while Ben leaned over his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He was hunting for something. Anything that could link the man in the suit to Golden Pines. The problem was, there was nothing. Golden Pines had been erased from public records. The people behind it had made sure no trace of their operations remained. But Ben knew something they didn't. Nothing ever really disappeared. He clicked open a new search window and dug through federal archives, using access he still had from his days in law. He searched for shut-down orphanages, missing children's reports, state funding records, and sealed lawsuits. Then, finally, he hit something. A whistleblower case buried deep in federal records. Ben opened the file. Petitioner, Dr. Olivia Fay. Filed. September 2017. Status. Case dismissed. Ben's pulse quickened. Dr. Olivia Fay. That name meant something. He turned the screen to Ava. "Does this name sound familiar?" Ava stared at it. Then, so softly he almost didn't hear, she whispered, "That's my mother." Ben inhaled sharply. She filed a case against Golden Pines. Ava swallowed hard, gripping the blanket tighter. "I don't remember everything, but she used to whisper things to me at night. Told me I was special. Told me that if something happened, I had to run." Ben clicked the case file open. Dr. Olivia Fay had accused Golden Pines of illegal experimentation on minors. She had provided sworn statements, medical records, and classified facility logs. Her claim: that Golden Pines was never an orphanage at all. It was a testing ground for an underground project called Project Eden, a Black Ops genetic research program designed to enhance human abilities. Ben read the allegations with cold, sinking horror. Children were taken from foster systems, abandoned hospitals, and at-risk homes. Experiments were conducted without consent, enhancement drugs, neurostimulation, and genetic modifications. Dozens of children vanished or were deemed unviable. The project was government-funded, until it wasn't. The program had been shut down overnight in 2017. All records sealed, all involved parties silenced, and every child within its walls was erased. Ben clenched his jaw. "Your mother tried to expose this." Ava nodded, her voice shaking. "She tried to save me." Ben's stomach twisted. Olivia Fay had risked everything to get Ava out. And she had paid the price. According to the file, Dr. Olivia Fay disappeared 3 weeks after filing the case. No body was found. No investigation was launched. Just gone. And now, someone was making sure Ava disappeared too. Ben stared at the screen, rage boiling inside him. They think they buried this. They think they got away with it. He glanced at Ava. They're wrong. A trail of ghosts. Ben knew the next step wouldn't be easy. If the people behind Golden Pines had erased Olivia Fay, they had the power to erase anyone. But Ben also knew how to fight in the dark. He had spent years going up against men in power, men who thought their secrets would keep them safe. He had exposed corrupt judges, corporate cover-ups, and backroom deals that had ruined lives. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was a hunter. And this time, the prey didn't know they were being stalked. Ben pulled up an old contact list. If Golden Pines was connected to a Black Ops program, he needed to talk to someone who knew the deepest, darkest corners of government projects. He dialed a number he hadn't used in years. The line clicked. A deep voice answered. Carter. Ben exhaled. Need a favor. A pause. Then a low chuckle. You don't call for favors. You call to start fires. Ben's grip tightened on the phone. Then let's burn something down. The man on the other end hummed. Tell me what you need. Ben glanced at Ava. And then, in a voice filled with quiet fury, he said, I need everything you can find on Project Eden. Silence. Then the man muttered a curse. Carter, you're stepping into something bad. Ben's jaw clenched. I know. A long sigh. Fine, but if I do this, you owe me. Ben didn't hesitate. Whatever it takes. The call ended. Ben set the phone down, his mind racing. He turned to Ava. We're about to find out who's been hunting you. Ava swallowed. And then what? Ben's eyes darkened. Then we stopped them. The first attack. The lights in the bookstore flickered. Ben and Ava both froze. Ava's fingers dug into the couch. Did you see that? Ben stood, his instincts roaring to life. He moved toward the window, parting the blinds just an inch. The street outside was too quiet. Then, just as he was about to turn away, a dark van pulled up. The doors slid open. Men in black combat gear stepped out. 3 of them. Armed. Moving with deadly precision. Ben's heart slammed against his ribs. He turned sharply. Ava. Run. Ava gasped. Where? Ben's mind raced. The fire escape. The alley. The train station. But before he could finish, the front door exploded inward. Ben barely had time to shove Ava behind him before the first man entered. Dressed in tactical gear. Wearing an earpiece. Holding a tranquilizer gun. Not here to kill. Here to take. Ben didn't think. He moved. The revolver was already in his hand, aimed at the first man's shoulder. He fired. The gunshot shattered the bookstore's silence. The man staggered back, dropping his weapon. The second man lunged. Ben grabbed a heavy book from the counter and slammed it into the guy's face, knocking him off balance. Ava scrambled toward the back door. Go, Ben shouted. But the third man was already moving. He reached for Ava. And she moved like a shadow. She twisted, ducked under his arms, and slammed her palm against his chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then the man collapsed. Ben's breath caught. Ava. She stood there, shaking, looking at her hands like they weren't her own. Ben didn't have time to process it. He grabbed her wrist. We have to move. Now. The 2 remaining men were already recovering. Ben and Ava bolted through the back door. Out into the alley. Into the night. And into the unknown. The truth buried in shadows. Ben's hands were steady, but his heart pounded like a war drum. There was no time to think. Only time to run. The black van across the street sat like a predator in the dark, its tinted windows unreadable. The man in the suit stood beside it, his posture unnervingly patient, as if he knew something Ben didn't. Ava's small fingers clutched Ben's sleeve. "They found us," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ben grabbed his keys and shoved his laptop into his bag. "We're not sticking around to find out what they want." He ushered Ava through the back door of the bookstore, leading her down the dimly lit alley. The smell of damp pavement filled the air. A light drizzle had begun, misting the neon reflections from the street. Ava glanced back. "Ben, what if they—" "Keep moving," he urged, scanning the shadows for threats. They had just reached the alley's end when a deep voice shattered the silence. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Mr. Carter." Ben spun around. The man in the suit stood at the alley entrance, blocking their escape. "The deal with the devil." Ben's grip on Ava's wrist tightened. "Stay behind me," he murmured. The man took a slow step forward, hands in his pockets, his dark eyes unreadable. "I've been patient," he said. "We didn't want it to come to this." Ben's mind raced. He had seen men like this before, in courtrooms, in boardrooms, government operatives, corporate assassins, people who operated outside the law. They never spoke without a reason. "You know what's at stake," the man continued. "You don't want to be on the wrong side of this, Ben." Ben's jaw clenched. "Then tell me, what the hell is this?" A slow smirk tugged at the corner of the man's lips. "You already know. That laptop in your bag. It's got the proof. Dr. Fay tried to expose us. She failed." Ava stiffened beside him. "You killed my mom." The man exhaled as if bored. Dr. Fay was misguided. She didn't understand the bigger picture. "But you, Ben, you're smarter than this. Walk away now, and we forget this ever happened." Ben's grip on his bag tightened. His pulse pounded in his ears. Ava trembled. The man took another step forward. "I can even offer you something in return, a clean slate. No more guilt. No more past weighing you down." Ben stiffened. He knew. He knew about the Peterson case. Knew about the wrongful conviction that had destroyed Ben's career. Ben's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about Ava anymore. This was about power, control, silence. The man reached into his pocket. For a split second, Ben thought he was going for a gun. Instead, he pulled out a sleek black business card and flicked it toward Ben's feet. "Think about it," he said. "You're a logical man. You'll see reason." Then, without another word, he turned and walked back to the van. The engine roared to life. Within seconds, they were gone. Ava's small voice broke the silence. "Ben, they're going to come back." Ben stared at the black card at his feet. He already knew the answer. The road to the dead. They had to leave. Ben loaded Ava into his car, tossing his laptop onto the passenger seat. Rain drummed against the windshield as he pulled onto the highway, heart hammering in his chest. He gripped the wheel. They killed her mother. They won't stop until she's gone, too. Ava hugged her knees. "Where are we going?" Ben glanced at her. "Somewhere they won't find us." But deep down, he knew there was no such place. Not until they finished this. He drove through the night, pushing the speed limit. Then, bang! Ava screamed as the car lurched violently. Ben fought the wheel. "Hold on." Another bang. The back tire exploded. The car spun out of control. Ben slammed the brakes, but the road was slick. The car careened off the pavement, plowing into a ditch. Silence. Smoke curled from under the hood. Ava groaned beside him. "Ben?" He blinked, shaking off the dizziness. "I'm okay. You?" She nodded weakly. "What just happened?" Ben forced open the door, stumbling onto the wet ground. Then he saw it. Bullet holes. His blood ran cold. They had been shot at. Ava climbed up beside him. Ben. A figure emerged from the darkness, moving toward them. Ben reached for the gun in his glove box, but it was too late. The stranger raised a hand. "I'm not with them." Ben narrowed his eyes. "Who the hell are you?" The man stepped into the glow of the broken headlights. His face was scared, his eyes sharp. My name is Marcus Fay. Ben's breath hitched. Ava whispered, "That's my uncle." The final stand. Marcus wasted no time. "They won't stop coming," he said, pulling a rifle from under his coat. "I've been running for years, but you." He pointed to Ava. "You're the key to ending this." Ava swallowed hard. "Me?" Marcus nodded grimly. "You weren't just a test subject. You were the experiment that worked." Ben frowned. "What does that mean?" Marcus glanced down the road. In the distance, headlights flashed. "They're here." Ben's stomach twisted. "How do we stop them?" Marcus chambered around. "We don't." He turned to Ben. "You get Ava out of here. I'll hold them off." Ben hesitated. Marcus' eyes darkened. "Ben, listen to me. If they take her, they'll erase her just like they erased Olivia." Ben clenched his fists. He looked at Ava, small, terrified, but so much stronger than anyone had ever given her credit for. He couldn't fail her. Not like he had failed before. Ben grabbed Ava's hand. "Let's go." They ran into the darkness as gunfire erupted behind them. The shadows of their past chased them, but Ben knew one thing. They would not be erased. Not this time.